Breaking Through News has recently covered Harrisonburg Police Department hosting joint active shooter trainings. Some residents are questioning why the HPD would have training exercises in June and another in August.
Well, it's important to train on a regular basis so you're up to date on new tactics by not only the offender but how to respond to it as law enforcement, because it's ever evolving. Once any incident happens, maybe anywhere in the nation, what we do is we look at that incident and see how their law enforcement agency responded to it and see how us as an agency can respond to an incident that would be similar to that. Obviously, we want to put our best tactics forward and save as many lives as possible.
That's Harrisonburg Police Sergeant Chris Monahan. We introduced you to Sergeant Monahan during a training exercise by his department on August 9th. We went to the sergeant seeking answers for our viewers. He explains the need for the persistent training.
We live in a world where, we never know where something's going to happen, how severe it's going to be, whether it's a school, a church, or an office situation. We want to make sure that we're prepared to handle each situation. So with that, what we're going to do is always take a second look at our tactics and our policies to make sure they're putting our best foot forward and able to prevent these things from happening, and if they do happen, make sure our response is effective and efficient.
He says Harrisonburg police are working diligently to protect and serve residents. That's not only a motto of the department, but it's also an objective.
We like to think that we're ahead of the curve as far as an agency when it comes to training. We do train a lot, and by training a lot, I think that puts us in a position where we have to think less and we can respond more. So rather than think on the fly how to respond to something, it becomes instinctive the more you train for it. So we do train fairly often.
The sergeant says whenever they respond to a call for help, most of the time there's a need for other first responders.
When we train, we open our training up to multiple agencies. So any adjoining agency or any agency in Virginia can come train with us, and we think they're the people that are going to be responding to these big incidents, so it's important that they're familiar with us and familiar with our tactics, and we can work together to be successful.
Even though the police training is continual, Sergeant Monahan says it's imperative for officers to operate with other emergency agencies like clockwork.
We train for active shooter scenarios as a department. We do in-service probably 2 to 3 times a year where we are training internally. We got our SWAT tactical team that trains on a monthly basis. Very often we're training in active shooter scenarios. And then we do this joint agency where we can bring in the other entities such as fire department, emergency communications center, fire rescue squad, other departments, so that again, when there's a big incident, we're also going to be setting up a ICS, an incident command scene, so that we understand how to work with each other and make sure we're getting the best out of each resource.
More than a decade ago, Harrisonburg police were called to a healthcare office where an active shooter was inside the building.
Thankfully, there's never been an active shooter in our school system that we've had to deal with. We have dealt with it in a workplace violence type environment where we had to respond to an active shooter situation, and that's why we train. So we want to train to be aggressive, to eliminate the threat as soon as possible, and to save as many lives as possible.
I questioned the sergeant about the rigorous active shooter training, taking its toll on the officers.
This kind of training is actually, officers look forward to it because they understand that, hey, if something like this ever did happen, they need to be on their A game. They need to understand what's expected of them, and they need to know what's expected of those around them. So it's kind of training that, while we hope we never have to use, we certainly want to be prepared for if it happens.
In Harrisonburg, Elaine Rackley for Breaking Through News.